I was very influenced by Shinko Munakata, the great Japanese woodblock artist who just carved. He did all the carving and the printing. He just painted over, put watercolor behind the paper and things. He was very direct. And Shinko Munakata was my biggest influence in the 60s and early 70s. Okay, what I'm talking about is the difference between the Japanese tools and the Western tools. And this is a Japanese tools that's held like this. Can you? And when I want to sharpen this tool, look, watch. And these I got at Soko Hardware in 1966. Soko Hardware in Japantown in San Francisco. And these are traditional Japanese you slide on the wood. You don't gouge it. You slide on the wood to make lines very linear. This is also a traditional Japanese wood block tool. That's made from with just the wood. It doesn't come out, doesn't go like the other one does. This is made more for working this way. Okay, so this one slides this way. And this one is, you're up literally gouging out the piece. Today, the Japanese came up with these, the powered grip tool, and this is one that's a combination of both. So they make ones that you slide and one that you gouge. When you see this, it's a gouging method. This is a traditional Japanese printing knife, and you hold it like a dagger. And you cut the wood around. In other words, you're cutting out the negative space. Had this since 1966 too. This is a miniature Japanese chisel. So when I'm working small, this size, I don't overcut. And I have 3 different sizes of these. Make sense? Okay, this is an Italian linoleum cutter. And this comes always in a set. You buy these in sets in Italy. And it's a gouging tool made to cut through the linoleum. The steel is softer than the steel that you'd use on a German tool or a British tool.
And that's for linoleum.
That's linoleum. This is American. And this is the knife, our version of the knife that you saw, at the same angle and everything, except that it's
Like a scraper?
yeah, and it's made flat on one side. So when you have a chisel like that, okay, you're running flat on the wood. That's why. This is a gouge, and the gouge like a sculptor. I can gouge out all that way. Okay? All right, let's look at this. This are engraving tools, flat. Same reason. Now the engraving tools you hold like this. This is English from Lions. Very English, you know, because it has to be just right, and because you're making very, very little lines, tiny engraving lines, and sometimes you might have see the size of the lines? And if you're Thomas Bewick and you're after Albrecht Dürer and you're admiring Albrecht Dürer's work, you have a bunch of these at all different sizes. And you and Rawlins and the guys are making these out in the 18th century England. These are two Japanese children's, what the Japanese call children's, for children, Nijai, or Niji. This is a scooping one, and this is a needle one, scratched down. What they're good for is you could use them in linoleum. You wouldn't, in wood, they'll break eventually.
Oh.
But they don't break as easy as the Japanese say it's strictly for kids. But anyway, okay, up here I have a wood block that I started a long time ago, and I have here the board that's going to hold it. And the reason I have a V here is so it's easier to cut.
Oh, okay.
So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take some old typing paper. People remember typing paper.
I do.
The reason I like it is I can see through it, and I'm going to take my graphite and see where I need to cut. In Japan, the artist didn't print the thing. The artist was the designer. The printer, they had one guy that cut the block and one guy that printed the block with Japanese printing brushes. Can you see those? These are Japanese printing brushes, and that one's from '66. I don't know if they still make that one, but all these other ones are different years. And the Western rollers, different groups of different Western rollers, and up there, professional printing ink. I taught printmaking for a lot of years. Okay, let's look at this. We can see where is it not looking right? What do I need to cut? I don't have to ink it up to see my lights. Done with the graphite stick. These are tools that gouge in very small gouges, very thin lines. And you can see this is the knife. The same angle, but look how tiny size it is. This is a V gouge. Cuts deep at the bottom and wide at the top. And one more of those I'll show you here because they're kind of unique. This is the whitest one of those. That's the whitest one they make in these. And they're all, in all these, I use all those different tools to make different cuts. So I'm not interested in having the thing the same cut. Let's look at the baron. This is the traditional Japanese baron, which they've used since the 1500s. And it's bamboo wrapped around they take the wrap, they wrap inside and keep the bamboo wrapping, and like a rope is in there, like a rope, and they filled it in. Okay, these are very expensive now because they can only be made by hand, and I have one of them because they're so expensive. But I have a student grade one, which is cardboard, and you could get, you can get a lot of things with this. The modern Japanese baron, plastic. And tools, I can get texture. I can print with this brush on top of the paper, and it's soft, and this is Japanese. And for some reason, I can't remember why, but it's hard to get these brushes now. But
You run that over the
over the paper as it's on the block to get a different kind of a very soft print. It has hardly any of my body pressure. These are all body pressure.
What are the bristles made of on that? The hair?
The pony hair. That soft pony hair like we saw in the watercolor brushes. Pony hair is sturdy, but at the same time it's very good for this sort of thing. It holds up. In other words, it stays straight. Drawn to wood cutting because my great grandfather was a cabinet maker and wood carver, so I think I just picked it up that way, and I didn't know that he was until I started doing it, and then my uncle told me about him. All right, so up here, different chisels, different sizes. An American chisel, which sculptors would use to clear the big pieces of the wood out, or I could go down and clear out a big piece of the plywood. Different sharpening stones, all in one piece. Because each one of these things has to be sharpened on a different stone. The Italian one I don't sharpen. The Italian one I just leave it alone because it's what it is. It's too delicate. I was very influenced by Shinko Munakata, the great Japanese woodblock artist who just carved. He did all the carving and the printing. He just painted over, put watercolor behind the paper and things. He was very direct. And Shinko Munakata was my biggest influence in the 60s and early 70s. And so I was looking for a directness, and printmaking got very complicated, and I was teaching all kinds of complicated processes because that's what part of my job. But I said, what the hell, this is crazy. I could, I wanted to go direct. And so I went back into the directness, and that was Munakata. And Munakata was a Japanese living treasure, so not a bad guy to try to emulate at the time. I didn't copy his work, but I wanted his process, the process of the directness, because for me the process is more important than the product.